15 U.S. Code, subsection 1615. Prohibition on use of Rule of 78 in connection with mortgage refinancing and other consumer loans. A. Prompt refund of unearned interest required. 1. In general, if a consumer prepays in full for the financed amount under any consumer credit transaction, the creditor shall promptly refund any unearned portion of the interest charge to the consumer. If a consumer prepays in full the financed amount under any consumer credit transaction, the creditor shall promptly refund any unearned portion of the interest charge to the consumer. 2. Exception for refund of de minimis amount. No refund shall be required under paragraph 1 with respect to the prepayment of any consumer credit transaction if the total amount of the refund would be less than $1. 3. Applicability to refinance transactions and acceleration by the creditor. This subsection shall apply with respect to any prepayment of a consumer credit transaction described in paragraph 1 without regard to the manner or the reason for the prepayment, including any prepayment made in connection with the refinancing, consolidation, or restructuring of the transaction, and any prepayment made as a result of the acceleration of the obligation to repay the amount due with respect to the transaction. B. Use of Rule of 78 prohibited for the purpose of calculating any refund of interest required under subsection A for any pre-computed consumer credit transaction of a term exceeding 61 months, which is consummated after September 30th, 1993. The creditor shall compute the refund based on a method which is at least favorable to the consumer as the actuarial method. C. Statement of prepayment amount. 1. In general, before the end of the 5-day period, beginning on the date an oral or written request is received by a creditor from a consumer for the disclosure of the amount due on any pre-computed consumer credit account, the creditor or assignee shall provide the consumer with a statement of the amount necessary to prepay the account in full, and if the amount disclosed pursuant to subparagraph A includes an amount which is required to be refunded under this section with respect to such prepayment, the amount of such refund. 2. Written statement required if request is in writing. If the customer's request is in writing, the statement under paragraph 1 shall be in writing. 1 free annual statement. The consumer shall be entitled to obtain 1 statement under paragraph 1 each year without charge. Additional statements subject to reasonable fees. Any creditor may impose a reasonable fee to cover the cost of providing any statement under paragraph 1 to any consumer in addition to the 1 free annual statement required under paragraph 3 if the amount of the charge for such additional statement is disclosed to the consumer before furnishing such statement. D. Definitions. For the purpose of this section, which this should have been first, the term actuarial method means the method of allocating payments made on a debt between the amount financed and the finance charge, pursuant to which a payment is applied first to the accumulated finance charge. Let me read that again. The term actuarial method means the method of allocating payments made on a debt between the amount financed and the finance charge, pursuant to which a payment is applied first to the accumulated finance charge and any remainder is subtracted from or any deficiency is added to the unpaid balance of the amount financed. 2. Consumer credit. The terms consumer and creditor have the meanings given to such terms in section 1602 of this title. The term creditor has the meaning given to it in section 1602, and it includes any assignee of any creditor with respect to credit extended in connection with any consumer credit transaction, any subsequent assignee with respect to such credit. So let's go over these terms again since they make it a point to put them back in the definition. Consumer in 1602. Let's see. Let's go back over consumer. I'm going to start with consumer. I see it, but it's not highlighted. So I want to make sure. Okay. So it's not highlighted. The adjective consumer used with reference to a credit transaction characterizes the transaction as one in which the party to whom credit is offered or extended is a natural person, and the money, property, or services, which are the subject of the transaction, are primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. So the adjective consumer is a natural person, and the money, property, or services that are subject of the transaction, of the credit transaction, are for personal, family, and household purposes. We'll talk about natural person later. So we're going to go back over creditor. Creditor refers only to a person who both regularly extends, whether in connection with loans, sales of property or services, or otherwise. A creditor refers only to a person who regularly extends consumer credit, which is payable by agreement, and is the person to whom the debt arising from the consumer credit transaction is initially payable on the face of the evidence of indebtedness. Okay? So if you go back, I have a video on definitions and I read all of the definitions. Jeez, I read all of these. Okay? So this is going to stop and we're going to head over to 1616. Well, we can read it here, really. It's not a long read, but let's go to 1616.